Are you with me? And any questions that you might have, like pertaining to what I have been talking about up to this point? Or I will move on. So if you're good, I move on. So interrupt me if you have anything to ask me, okay? Okay, so what's public policy process and why is it it's urbanized? I think those points are clear. But one more thing. Okay, it's a costly process. Solving our collective problems like having decent drinking water, having a shelter, having a properly functioning transportation system, right? They're all costly endeavors, cost enterprises. And let alone all those services. Living together is a cost enterprise. So you might have a significant other, you might have a sister and brother, you might be surrounded by the people that you love and care about most. Still you find it difficult to live with them, right? Your parents, your siblings, your significant other, right? It's hard to coexist. Humans are very extremely problematic species. Çok cins bir türüz biz yani. We are very problematic species, right? As a type of category of species, right? It's already very costly to live together, psychologically. But the thing is, we also need each other. Because it's very expensive to do it alone. So you will never walk alone, but you have to walk alone. So you have to act collective. So collective action is our destiny. But because we were so good at it, so we became the dominant species. So if you read Noah Yuval Harari's book, read the Sapiens, he gives a very decent account of how our ability to get organized really allowed us to become the most dominant species, but the most destructive one as well. Right? So it's a cost enterprise, but the thing is, when you make a policy, this whole decision-making process is like a steering mechanism. You create benefits, but then you create also costs. So as you are trying to solve a problem, simultaneously you are kind of relocating the cost and benefits of our coexistence. So I enjoy your presence, but as I enjoy it, you pay the price for my enjoyment. Right? So company incurs cost. Moral, psychological, material cost, and also benefits. So this whole process that we've been talking about up to this point, it's not simply a mechanical process. All those decisions and actions are simultaneously making someone better off and someone worse off. So this is what we mean by redistribution of well-being overall. Okay, folks? So then, well, this is just one point that I would like to get back to. This whole process is increasingly now, I wouldn't call it chaotic, but a more complex process. It requires better coordination. Better coordination because it gets increasingly costly. To improve the benefits, this whole process needs better coordination. Better harmonization, which brings us to the governance problem. Governance of the public policy process. So governance of the public policy process, in fact, is about ensuring or actively pursuing harmony in the decisions, actions of built-in components of a given whole with a mission, or harmonizing decisions, actions of a number of autonomous yet related entities to turn them into a greater and meaningful whole body. So this one means within the same organization, meaning run the whole ministry much better. Here, run thousands of different actors, work toward the same goal, right? So this is the real challenge. So it's really in this urban environment. It's in this urban environment, right, and this governance matrix that you must coordinate this. So how do we better coordinate this? How do we coordinate this multiplicity of actors with varying interests, various resources, sometimes conflicting interests? So this is really where instance, local governments increasingly assume a much more central role. So this is not pure decentralization. In other words, transferring the power or resources or authority of central governments to, for instance, municipalities. So this does not simply mean that. So the current context inevitably requires locally stronger coordination mechanisms. I'm not talking about local governments or municipalities only, right? Because the urban setting increasingly requires horizontal coordinations. So the weight center of the capitalist state could still be the nation state, but it equally requires much stronger local institutions in terms of their policy making capacity and policy implementation capacity. So this is inevitable. So urbanization is driving us towards stronger local institutions. Doesn't mean necessarily more democratic ones though. You see what I mean? So it's inevitable. Even if the municipalities, their mayors, councils are not intent to do so, there will be local demand for it. People ask for things to be done, performed by the local governments, although this is not necessarily the responsibilities of the local governments. They will ask for things that are not necessarily supposed to be done by local governments. People ask for it. People will ask for it. And of course, mayors, to get re-elected, they don't have the luxury to say no. So this is inevitable in a way. Right? This is inevitable. So that's why spatial interventions also require coordinated action. So this new weight center of governance, not only the nation state, but equally the local state, if you will. So you can see them as like twins, right? Like Siamese twins. So this is now the capitalist state, the core of the capitalist state is here, perhaps. The new weight center, right? So that's why, for instance, nowadays, you cannot tell the local politics from the national politics. You cannot tell if it's Istanbul's problems or Turkey's problems. Is it a national policy problem? That's why, for instance, nowadays, the mayors of major cities become the national political figures and the candidates for the presidential post. You cannot tell the local from the national. So that boundary between the local and the national is disappearing in the imagination of people and in politics. Is that politically also, folks? That's why those interventions are becoming increasingly significant. Now, how are we doing time-wise? At 7 minutes? Good? Very good? Okay. Okay, so, but here's the question. Here's the problem. The whole public policy process and this whole process of neoliberal capitalist urbanization is creating divides, inequalities. Right? Divides and inequalities. It gets increasingly worse. It doesn't get really any better. Do you see this? This is from Brazil. It's the same neighborhood, but there's a wall here. This road is cut off by this wall. And apparently there's an urban planning decision made here. And do you see the difference? And they coexist. Well, we don't see the rest of the picture like here, right, around here. But you can guess where it's going towards. Right? This is a stark contrast, but this sums up the whole story of capitalist urbanization. That's the spirit, right? This is the problem that you must be dealing with. This is a concrete problem that you must deal with. This is just a visual summary or physical summary of the whole problem. But you get the point, I guess, here, right? So, how do you intervene with that problem? You remember that picture now, right? How do you intervene with that problem? How do you intervene with that problem? Well, remember, public policy is about collective action, right? We act collectively to address our collective problems, using our own collectively controlled resources. Anything involved here in this definition, right? What's a collective action problem? And in this collective action problem, right, this means that you are altering and affecting life chances of the members of that collectivity, meaning the nation, meaning the citizens, right, the people living in a city, right, the community members. Here, the thing is, it's not enough to solve our collective problems, but to solve it in such a way that everyone will have her or his decent share in it. Otherwise, it will not be sustainable. It will collapse at one point. It will collapse. Right? It's not really that sustainable. The only thing that can be sustainable, you can keep people above the level poverty line, absolute poverty line, right? But that will collapse. Even if there will be no political protests, your population will no longer be healthy. Your civilization will collapse, your population will grow smaller. Nüfus kaybedeceksin, nüfusun küçülür. Right? You will lose population. People die off. Just like Europe in 1200s, right? So you will, demographically speaking, you will lose it. So you need to keep it sustainable even for the most pragmatic reasons. So this means that you need to observe justice, social justice, meaning that you must find a way to govern exclusion-inclusion problem. Meaning that how do you include the people to the benefits, right? And how do you redistribute, or how do you incorporate the excluded back into the process? So you don't want to leave anyone behind, right? So this is what we mean by inclusion, exclusion. But inclusion, exclusion is basically about the problem of access to the resources required for your well-being, or benefits required for your well-being, right? Inclusion is access, but it also requires availability of those resources or services. So, what do we mean by that? So you have the citizenship card, ID card, you have TC kimlik numarası, right? You have the citizenship number, right? So you need a citizenship number so that you can get free public service, right? You can get free health service. But you also need a public hospital around. Available and accessible, right? So inclusion means you are doing something about the connectivity, accessibility, right? And availability of welfare, sources of welfare. And where is that welfare generated exactly? Well, in three domains. Public domains of collective action, again, market domain, and civil society. Let me give you an example and you will just get it. You will just get it. You will just get it. Okay. Well, it's now winter season coming, right? You don't feel well, you catch flu. So what do? Early in the morning, you just go to the hospital, and hospitals are free public service. You go to the public domain, right? You get free service, but the doctor gives you the prescription and says, now you're gonna get these drugs, these pills, but you need to get them after you have some food. So then you get to the pharmacist. The pharmacist give you the prescription drugs, prescribed drugs, right? Then you get to eat something, but you also need to compensate for, right? There's a compensation that you pay for drugs, right? You top up. For that top up, you need money. Or to be able to buy the food that you will eat at home eventually requires money. So where do you get that money? You need a stream or source of income, and source of income mostly comes from market relations, right? Either you work, you're employed, or you have a property that you lease and it's on rent and you get the rent money from that property, right? You have a source of income and that comes from the market domain. But then you get home and you are so tired, you need someone to cook for you. And it's your sibling, your significant other, your parents, they cook for you. Civil society, right? Then you get well. You get your soup, then you have your pills, and you recover. You see? It's all those three domains. Here in the form of pharmacist or the marketplace owner, here your siblings, here the doctor from the hospital. All of them, those three domains at once, in a matter of 1 hour, they help you. So this is what I mean by those domains of collective action, right? They help you out in different ways, with different logics of solidarity. This is also solidarity, but when you pay for it. They help you when you help them. I hope the point is clear. So this is what we mean by those three domains. And the thing is, when you intervene in public policy, you are not only doing hospitals, you are not only building hospitals, you don't make them only accessible. You also do things about the market as a public authority, and you also do things about civil society too. Right? It's just like an octopus. State comprises as implementers, market actors, and civil society. So this is your health policy basically. Not only here, it's all over your health policy. Right? So this connectivity becomes most significant, this connectedness becomes most significant in the urban setting. Okay. Then this is what you think about and what you should reflect on, the redistribution of benefits and costs, access versus and availability. First, spatial access to public domain. Then spatial access to market, and spatial access to civil society. So in your urban policies, you must be dealing with whether or not public services are accessible and available to your citizens. So what does that mean? So this is about locational choices of your investments across the space, right? But this is also about your investments into transportation services and infrastructure. And this is also about funding, for instance, health service or social aid, so on and so forth, right? So you make it accessible and also available. Here, spatial access to the market, spatial benefits and costs. But this is about how you plan, for instance, how you plan not only your transportation policies, but it's also about how you intervene with the market actors, how you collaborate or how you fight back the private sector actors and companies. And here, access to civil society. You should have a clear understanding of the individual logic or individual characteristics of different neighborhoods, their cultural traits, the family structure in respective neighborhoods, and how they are connected with each other. Right? So, in a combination of all those different interventions, we begin to make sense. We begin to make effective policy. So this is my argument. Right? And here, in this whole process, you are dealing with, and I'm stopping here, you are dealing with not only fixities, but also mobilities. Meaning that the problems that you are trying to solve and address in an urban setting, they are not simply fixed problems. The problems that nowadays we are dealing with, we are trying to address, they are mobile problems. The problems are traveling. The problems are traveling. People are traveling. Goods and services, information, all traveling. It's all on the move. And the thing is, the problems that we are trying to solve here, they come from elsewhere. We import them. Environmental problems, we import them. Well, the refugee question, we import them. Right? Most of the problems that even the local actors are trying to solve, not only central governments, they are traveling. The problems are traveling. They are mobile problems. But the problem here, in the case of Turkey, in many contexts, local governments' jurisdictions are fixed. But the problems are traveling. Here the question is, how do you intervene with those problems that are traveling once you have fixed jurisdictions? Just let me stop here. Okay? I hope the points that I have raised up to this point were clear, but if you have any questions, first clarifications before you begin to raise your questions, if you need any clarification, I'll be more than glad to just repeat some of those insights or try to explain them further. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Prof.Dr.M.K.Bayırbağ, for this insightful presentation. And I think in terms of highlighting the interconnectivity problem, and also highlighting the interconnection between the public sector, the market sector, and also civil society, you have also provided a general framework in terms of explaining how the urban setting actually influences each and every aspect of our lives. So in this respect, now I would like to open up the floor for your questions to Mustafa Kemal Hoca, or if you have any other comments or any other contributions that you would like to make, you are more than welcome to contribute. So, do you have any questions, any comments, or any ideas?
Just fired off.
Maybe by taking advantage of my position, I would like to start with a question. So, in this neoliberal matrix of the urban setting, I just would like to ask, at which point does politics enter the picture? So, for instance, you have...
I'll be waiting for his question.
You have talked about how the state or the nation state itself is actually expanding into different sectors during the neoliberal process, and as a result of that, they're actually encountering the problems or difficulties of this process itself. So, for instance, can we expect any sort of neutrality from public servants
Excellent.
during this process?
Excellent question. Just a few things. Okay, so this whole picture, right? This kind of looks a bit messy. And again, like for every single policy issue or field, you end up with different types of networks here. So what you call the state and politics is a network of networks. So one of my arguments is this. This whole process turns the politician into a network administrator. A network administrator. Well, this is the dream scenario for a pluralist theoretician, right? We have a world of horizontalities, openness, democracy, participation, governance approach, so on and so forth. But here is the question. How the person, an actor from this end of the network, gets to or reaches out to this fellow at the other end of the network, for instance? You get through, go through, right? The person at the center. If you have a network, that network slowly forges a center, nerve center. Inevitably, a nerve center begins to emerge here. Quote unquote. One, please accept my apologies for not trying to be sexist, but this is how the terminology goes in Turkish. Check that out. One strong man. My apologies, not for, but that kind of imposes upon itself. It collapses into, so this decentralization, deconcentration creates further political centralization. So my thesis is that here, decentralization, administrative decentralization, creates further political centralization. So political centralization and administrative decentralization is a twin process. So everywhere here you end up with strong men, quote unquote. But for different policy networks, a network of quote unquote, those single strong decision makers emerging. Well, this is pretty clientelistic, and this is the source of populism. You see what I mean? So the one at the center has a phone book of at least 5,000 contacts. I overheard that from a friend who is a politician. That's 5,000 contacts in the phone.
called people. Here the thing is, those people become increasingly stronger, not formally, but via informal relations. So how do you keep this whole, like, dispersed structure together? So I liken it to the, I mean, the example is a bitter one, but I still have to use it. You know, when there is a broken bone, right? If there's a kind of a horrible accident, and the bone is broken into pieces like a shattered like a glass, they use a pin, right? The doctors, surgeons use a pin so that they will get pieces of bone, right, hold together. So informal relations begin to dominate, and they replicate, and they fill in the gap of this whole process. So perhaps on paper none of them are interconnected, but in reality they are all kind of have to speak to this strong person in the center to get through the other one. So the larger the network gets, the stronger the ones in the middle. And informally. So that's why, to be able to better run such a complicated structure, you need mafia. You need friendship order, you need colleague networks, friendship networks, ethnic networks. Your homeland, like people of origin, hemşerilik ağları, religious networks, doesn't matter. They fill in the gap. So this is what they call parallel state, paralel devlet. This is not parallel state. In fact, this structure requires informal coordination. It could be any form of an informal relationship, networks of trust, I mean, right? Because how those people will listen to you? There are no political hierarchies. Well, they will listen to you because you are their elderly, because you are from their hometown, because they like you, because they trust you. But there are networks of trust. So this is like what oils up the whole machinery. Right? So this is the form the politics takes for that reason an increasingly informal form and produces increasingly stronger political figures. You will never get, so that's why Turkey ended up with the transition to the presidential system. That's why Mr. Bahçeli said, we already have an already functioning structure which is a single strong decision making system, so let's make it official. So what Turkey's transition to the presidential system amounted to was just formalization of that informal network and make Mr. Erdogan more visible as the ultimate decision maker and put all the pressure and the eyes on his own actions and decisions and hold him accountable. It really backfired, I think. I am not sure if transition to the presidential system would be good for Mr. Erdogan. I hope my point is clear. So this is how it, and it's not only in Turkey. Think about the rise of strong political figures around the globe. More quote-unquote one-man figures all around the globe. Trump, Modi, Orban, in Hungary. You name it, the same in Poland. The same in Germany now. Almost the same in France now. Increasingly strong, populist, leader-oriented in Italy.
Sometimes in the UK.
In the UK, it's the same thing happening all over. So this is a universal, inevitable consequence of neoliberal decentralization. This whole process. So this is not something peculiar to Turkey. One thing about Turkey, we are at least 10 years ahead of them in neoliberalism. I'm not kidding. I'm positively serious about this. And I bet, I can bet to you, right, that the Trump's people, they have been studying Turkey closely. And not this time, before the last election, when Trump was first elected, their people were studying the case of Turkey. They were using those keywords, like derin devlet. That word was explicitly used by